Hello, Nikki. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Very good. So here's the story. This week's been a crazy busy week for me, and I have been all over the place, having had a vaccine and having had a little bit of home learning going on, and a husband who's been working on a really big presentation. So it's all been a bit nuts. So hilariously, Nikki and I had this booked in, and I completely forgot that I was interviewing her for the podcast. So you know that we are doing this completely on the fly. You know that I am a sometimes slightly overwhelmed mother, just like everybody else, running my business. And so, Nikki, I know very little, actually. I've come into this pretty much blind, which I actually like. I really like doing this because then I learn and I approach this with the beginner's mind. And that's, I think, the best way to do it anyway.
Yeah, very true. Yeah.
So welcome. And tell me a little bit, who are you? Where are you? What are you?
What am I? My name is Nikki, and I'm a mother of two young boys. I am based down in Jervis Bay, which is 2.5 hours south of Sydney, Australia. And what am I? I am a personal trainer and a health coach. And what really lights me up is helping mums to see beyond overwhelm and being so busy that they're not able to progress forward with their own health goals. So I really try to work with mums to provide them with different strategies towards working towards their health or fitness or whatever goal they may have that's going to give them more energy and really light them up. And breaking down those barriers that sometimes we might see when it comes to doing exercise or progressing forward on your health, like meal planning, reducing stress, getting better quality sleep, all of those things that us as mums struggle with.
So I so understand now why we're having this conversation. And I love this. So they are all really key touch points in the training that I do with women as well, though I'm not as specialised as you. So I love speaking to specialists, and you clearly are that. Can you tell me a little bit about how you came to be doing this? Why is this what lights you up?
I came to doing this from my own experiences as a mum. So how Mummy Fit Time came about initially was I had just had my second son, and I was struggling to get to exercise sessions. Kids were sick. I was tired. All of the reasons why. So I became an online personal trainer, and that was where I provided exercise programs for mums to be able to do at home. And I focused on the accountability side of things, where I was supporting them, keeping them accountable throughout their exercise journey. And along the way, over the last 3 years, Mummy Fit Time has really evolved now, because I started delving into the other sides of what makes up health, what makes up, it's not just exercise for me. For me, a great all-rounder health is I focus on what's called 4 pillars of health. So that is the exercise, nutrition side of things. And I'm not a nutritionist, so I don't do meal plans, but what I'd love to dive into is the nutrition psychology. What's driving us towards those food choices? How can we prepare ourselves so that we can make better nutritional choices instead of going to processed foods all the time? Another pillar of that is stress reduction. How can we reduce the impact of stress on our body? And that also comes from my children are now, how old are my children? 5 and 7 years old. And I've just recently moved through having adrenal fatigue, and that has come about as a result of stress. And then sleep quality as well, because I know that as mums, it's a huge struggle with children to get quantity of sleep. Kids are waking up through the evening, but quality sleep. So what can we be doing to promote the quality sleep of the sleep time that we are able to have? That's kind of my journey in a nutshell.
Well, tell me personally what happened. Can you share your story? You said that you came into it out of personal experience. What does that mean for you? What happened?
So After I had my second son, I feel, even though it was never formally diagnosed, I feel that I did have a form of PND, so postnatal depression. I was tired, irritable. It almost felt like my personality changed. And a huge thing has always been in my life exercise. So not being able to get out and do that regular exercise. And I also have my partner, he travels quite a lot for work. So I wasn't able to get out and do that a lot. So that's kind of where my journey started around developing Mummy Fit Time for me personally. But then I mentioned before the adrenal fatigue that I've recently gone through. So the adrenal fatigue for me has come as a result of a huge amount of stress going on in my life. And for those of you that have never heard of adrenal fatigue before, basically adrenal fatigue is fatigue of the adrenal system. So your adrenal system is basically, you've got two stress hormones. You've got cortisol and adrenaline, and they're the stress hormones that your body produces. So the adrenal fatigue is, I guess, overdevelopment or a huge amount of adrenaline and cortisol that is running through my body, and my body was not able to cope with the amount of stress that I was putting on my body. And when I'm talking stress, I'm not talking about one particular stressful instance. It was an accumulation of stress over time. So it was stress upon stress upon stress upon stress. So it might have been a little bit of work stress here, and then it might have been the kids fighting, then kids starting school and balancing a business, as well as doing all the other things that happen with mum life. And that sort of built up over time to the point where I was struggling to get through my day. I was so exhausted that I was, I guess, struggling to get to the end of the day. I was experiencing that 3 p.m. slump. I was putting on weight as well. And being a personal trainer, I'm like, well, why am I putting on weight here? I'm doing all the things. And that was a huge component as well, was the stress. So basically my hormones were really out of balance as a result of that. And because of that experience, that's what's made me really dive in and go, okay, I know I'm a personal trainer, but health is not all about exercise. Let's explore what else is going on. Let's explore what we can do to move through whatever's going on in your life, because everyone's life is different. We're all on the same journey, but our life is all different.
I'm curious about, how did you know the difference? First of all, how did you find out about adrenal fatigue? How did that become the words that you now use? And second of all, how do you differentiate? So you're talking about an undiagnosed postnatal depression. And I'm curious because sometimes I feel like that, exactly what you described, is the same as what Dr. Oscar Serralach calls postnatal depletion.
Okay.
So it's very interesting. Do you know about his book? It's a fantastic book. Oh, it's called The Postnatal Depletion Cure. He's a Northern Rivers-based doctor in New South Wales. Amazing. Okay. Look it up. Very interesting for the work that you do. And his book is available on the Soul Mama Hub bookshelf.
Okay.
I'll put all of the great books that I find on there. So I'll send you a link for that after.
Wonderful. That'd be great.
That might be really interesting for what you're talking about, as distinct from depression, which is, a spectrum of experience involving what we talk about as a chemical imbalance in the brain. Sometimes there's both. Sometimes there's one or the other. It's very hard to know. But I think you might resonate. What you described sounds a bit like postnatal depletion to me, which can go on for up to 10 years after birth and is very, very, I've written about it on my blog as well. So
that's really interesting, because when I did see my GP about it, I didn't quite meet the markers for formal diagnosis.
Classic.
Yeah, so her suggestion was that I went to one of those sleep centres for when you've got the young children and helping them to sleep, so that I could get a bit of extra sleep too.
Well, fair enough, I've done that too, but that's not the point. And I think sadly GPs are woefully miseducated on this. They're really undereducated in this area. And it's World Breastfeeding Week this week. And even medical professionals that I worked with when I had my first and second child gave me some advice that now I would not see as the best advice, having worked with La Leche League, which is a worldwide group of volunteers all over the world that are pro-breastfeeding and that give you very unconditional and non-judgmental advice and support more than advice to get through challenges that present during breastfeeding, which is early in motherhood. And I know that not being able to breastfeed or not being able to breastfeed in an optimal way can also cause a huge amount of depletion and low feelings and even if not purely chemical depression. So it's such a grey area. There's such a spectrum for so many of those things. And I feel for you because I know that you go to the GP and the GP doesn't really have the goods, and then you're kind of on your own and unsupported. And I think one of the reasons probably for you as well, but certainly one of the reasons for me that I do what I do is I want women to feel supported when they're at their most vulnerable.
Yes.
And that's often just post-childbirth.
Yes.
So it's a really big thing, and we're under so much pressure, like you say. We don't have the things we normally do to make us feel better. We don't necessarily have the support we need, and we don't necessarily have the wisdom or advice in our medical professionals. Some for sure, I'm not going to poo-poo medical professionals, but some just don't have the goods. You know, they're general practitioners. They're not specialists. And access to specialists is woefully poor in this country.
It is.
So I would say if you're in that position yourself and you're listening to this, please seek out the La Leche League. Please seek out mothers groups run by La Leche League, even online, worldwide, that give amazing support of other mothers who may be in that position. And also, if you can, connect with women who've been through this, like you or I, that are able to give you at least some direction. So, you know, maybe look here, maybe look there, and can listen to you unconditionally. And it's really powerful, you know, to have that sort of unconditional support around you.
Absolutely.
When you feel so vulnerable. But the other thing I was curious about is adrenal fatigue. So where did you get that knowledge and understanding from? How did you manage to identify that?
Yeah, so I am a massive fan of Dr. Libby Weaver. Have you heard of Dr. Libby?
No, I will have a look at her. Fantastic.
She is I'm hoping I get her title right. She's a nutritional biochemist, I think.
Oh, fantastic.
And she's got quite a number of books out. She's the author of Rushing Women's Syndrome.
Cool.
And The Invisible Overwhelm, I think, is the name of her other book. She's got quite a few books out. But I'm a huge fan of her, and I just lap up all the information that she has. And one of the things that she talks about in not Invisible Overwhelm, her book's called The Invisible Load. And that's where I first came across adrenal fatigue, because she dived right into it and explained what adrenal fatigue is, how it can come about. And that particular book was more around the mental load that women carry. And I find probably more so, I'm sort of generalizing here. I was going to say more so mothers, but I guess all people carry some form of mental load. That's where I first came across adrenal fatigue. And then I dived down a little bit deeper, did a little bit more research around it. In fact, I've got a blog on my website where I've talked about adrenal fatigue as well. So that's kind of where I discovered it. Then I saw a naturopath, and she was able to provide me with some more tools. So even though I had learnt and I now share with the women I coach information around the adrenal fatigue and way to move through it, she also gave me the supplemental supplements, I guess, to support my body through the basically to get my adrenals. My adrenal glands back to functioning properly.
And you do need support to do that. I know I've had members of my family experience adrenal fatigue. It's full on and very, very difficult to balance on your own without any sort of supplementation or herbal or acupuncture or some sort of natural remedy. Well, I'm a natural remedy person.
There
may be a medical answer. I don't know. We've only ever used natural, but But there's definitely and there's a place there for, in my experience, mindfulness, yoga, some calming, autonomic nervous system type balancing regenerative work, whether it be yoga,
and
meditation,
that's something
mindfulness.
that I've had to do with my exercise. So I was a long distance runner, but long distance running places a lot of stress on your body.
Sure does.
So I had to really scale back and bring in the yoga and the Pilates and the more gentle exercise practices to be able to support my adrenals while they started functioning as at their normal capacity. So while
it's a little bit like recovery. If you experience trauma, your body floods with cortisol, and then you have this level of cortisol in your body that causes all kinds of issues, and it's kind of this invisible thing that takes you out. You know? And adrenal fatigue is similar in that way. You have this system that's just on overdrive all the time that never stops, and it's constantly taking you out, but you may not be aware. So you just become exhausted, reactive, unable to balance your emotions, well-being, general, and it takes a real toll on the body as well. So the things that previously you may have been able to do now don't necessarily help. Because it's like your body's just pumping out this sort of fight or flight stuff, all the time. So you become so reactive.
One of the things that popped out to me, and it still does, I cannot cope now with having caffeine, because caffeine stimulates the adrenaline, the adrenals.
The opposite of what you need.
It did. And it really heightened. We were caught up in the bushfires that took place 2 years ago on the South Coast. We were caught up in that. And then COVID hit like 3 months later. And during that time, whenever I had coffee, or even it got to a point where wherever I had a can of Coke or a large amount of chocolate, I would start getting anxiety because of the adrenaline that would flood my body. So my body was just super sensitive to any stress, any adrenaline or excess cortisol.
Yeah, that's right. And it's amazing, really, isn't it? Because there's these systems, like a lot of things, our body works in a particular way for a particular reason. But if it has to do that too much, if things get out of whack, it can be very destabilizing. And our body seems to be quite responsive to that. And so we have this response, a natural life-saving survival instinct, which is if we're in danger, we have this, system which is in there to help us through danger. But unfortunately, it can just turn on and almost the switch gets stuck on. And then we're always responding to everything as if we're in danger. And that can be very difficult. And PTSD has some similar elements to that, actually. So there is an element, I would say, of a trauma and a PTSD response that cross over with adrenal fatigue, because it's a similar thing. And it's a very powerful experience, isn't it? You don't forget it, and it sticks with you. It doesn't ever go away, right? Like you say, there's certain things that will trigger it, and you'll be much more easily triggered.
Yes.
And so but it sounds like you're learning in a remarkable way about how your body works and how to respond to that,
Yeah, and as a result, I've been able to then share my experiences with other women. And I think that is hugely important. I'm very fortunate that I'm in a position where I've got a voice to be able to, and platforms to be able to share these experiences and let women know that, you're not actually going crazy. You don't have to be exhausted all the time. You don't need to be feeling this way. There could be other things going on within your body, like physical things in your body that you might not even be aware of.
Absolutely. And I think that's so beautiful. I was thinking about that this morning, actually. I was sharing something as well yesterday, and I thought, God, I'm so lucky. I've got this ability, not only ability and training to be able to speak and tell a story, but also platforms I've built up over the years to be able to connect with as many people as possible. And it's growing all the time. And I'm so grateful for that, because it means we get to do the work that we love, which is to share this stuff and help other women and help other mothers particularly. And I'm totally with you on that. I feel incredibly grateful for that too. And it always feels amazing when I somebody comes back to me and says, oh, this really helped me. It's just the best feeling in the world, isn't it? And
it is, yes. Really lights you up.
We're very fortunate, I know. And just that sense of, I think, that sharing information between us is so crucial. It sometimes gets a bit lost in our busy lives, and we don't always have the chance to do that just on the street or in our communities the way we used to. So now doing it in online communities is like a response to that, but we need each other.
Yeah.
And I was just creating a piece of content for my academy, for my membership.
Yeah.
And I was writing about this in it, just saying, gosh, we've just need it so much. We're hardwired to need this kind of connection and this kind of sharing of information. It's crucial.
It is. It really is. Yes.
So tell me, if you had one piece of information for the people listening to this podcast, if you had to give them one really key takeaway about what you do and how they can get kind of through their own sense of overwhelm or debilitating tiredness, or what's the key takeaway?
That's a really
hard,
good
isn't it,
question.
To distill?
Yeah, just to pull out one, because there are so many pieces to the
Intentional.
puzzle. Yeah. It is. Okay, so I guess one key takeaway in terms of what it is that I do is I quite often use this quote of every step I take takes me one step closer to my goal. So I think the key takeaway that summarizes what I do, and doesn't matter where you are on your path towards achieving your health and fitness goal or achieving your ideal healthy self, it doesn't matter where you are on that path, but as long as you're continuing to take progress, as long as you're continuing to take small steps. And by small steps, I'm not saying that I'm expecting you to go out and do a 60-minute exercise session each day. If right now you can get 5 minutes of extra movement in your day, that's better than no movement at all. So you're taking small steps there. If you're experiencing adrenal fatigue or complete overwhelm, one step at a time. And if that means that all you can focus on that week is taking some deep breaths into your belly, some deep diaphragmatic breaths, great. That's better than you not doing that at all.
We've always got the breath, don't we? I'm a martial artist, so breath is big for me. And the way I say exactly the same thing, I talk about it a lot. And I also talk about it with ethical living, because people think, I've got to be a zero waste vegan, to do anything. That's not true. And you start from where you're at. So wherever you are, it's about direction. Yeah. Which direction are you heading? And it's going to be circular. It's going to be, you're not always going to be moving forward. Don't beat yourself up if you go backwards. That's what we do.
Yes,
we go forward,
absolutely.
Then we go back a bit, then we go forward, then we go back a bit. But if your overall macro vision direction is positive and in the right direction for you, amazing. That's the best. That's the best you can do. No worries, and be kind to ourselves and gentle with ourselves about that as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, well, I love all this. I think, is there anything else you particularly wanted to share today?
I think we've covered off so much. We've talked in a completely different direction than what I usually discuss. So it's been fantastic. Good. Yeah, it's been really fantastic to dive in and share this information as well. So no, I don't really have anything else to add today. I think my departing message would be around the small steps, and just keep coming back to that. So every time you're feeling overwhelmed, every time you're feeling utterly exhausted, every time you're feeling like you just cannot get yourself in a good groove, take a step back and go, well, what is one thing that I can do right now to progress me towards my ideal healthy self?
And it might be have a glass of water.
Exactly. You just read my mind. You took those words right out of my mouth. Exactly. And it could be that. It could be have a glass of water. It could be reach for an apple. It could be, I don't know, do 10 squats.
Or in my case, grab the little tiny bit that's left in the glass that's on the table and drink that. That's what I tend to do. I'm cleaning up and I go, oh, wait, I haven't had any water. I'll just finish that off before I clean it. And like that, honestly, it's just, taking the scraps, and sometimes that's all you're going to be able to do. But if you're mindful enough, you might be able to kind of be in a bit of an alchemist and turn what you've got into gold. But it's not an easy process. And I would say if there is something deeper and more difficult going on, please do reach out to either of us and let us recommend a place for you to start getting the help you need, because it's more common than you know. It's not normalised nearly enough in my experience. The amount of people is 50% of births are traumatic. We don't address that very well, particularly in Australia. And I think in France you get 6 free appointments with a physio after birth. Like, we just don't have systems like that. So
here in Australia, it's hard to get into a women's health physio.
So, and even the early health nurses, bless your souls, I love you, but also some of you are woefully unprepared and uneducated in evidence-based care. And it's really sad, some of the things that people hear close following birth and get pointed in the wrong direction, including me. So I would say, if your gut's telling you something's not right, seek out the help that you can with people that you trust. If you trust us, please come to us. We will point you in the right direction. So I'll definitely publish all these details in a blog post about what we've talked about as well, and make sure that people can get in touch with you, Nikki. And it's been really lovely to have you with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed sharing my experiences.
Thank you. This is hilarious. Oh, here we go. Here's the recording. Okay, bye, everyone. Bye.